So we're looking at it's not a new diagnosis, and looking through the 1600s and 1800s, they had noticed this malady of attention. They had noticed that, in medical literature, there are the ADHD-like syndromes. And we're going to go through a lot of that stuff because nowadays we find Asperger's and autism and OCD and ODD, and we'll go through a little bit of that. We'll just touch on it. And then as you go through, in the 70s, scientists started looking at it from a different perspective, where they first decided to give all these children in this room that were high ADHD, we gave them stimulants, and it slowed things down for them. And they thought that was the answer. Let's just give them medication. Let's just control them with these drugs. And that turned out to be more of a mess than it definitely helped. And I'm going to talk to you about why. And then we looked at where, for centuries, some people thought it was a religious thing. It was a moral decision, or it was God and the devil. And these kids are making bad choices. They're just bad kids. And that's where we looked at the abuse. You looked at them being pushed aside from society and stuff like that, or looked at like they were wrong. And I know that there's people in this room who've talked about whether they were bullied at school because they were different, or they were made fun of, or something like that. When truly I want to embrace it and put it inside you that you have something that's fantastic, something that's amazing. And it does take work to get it to come out, but it's there, and it's always going to be there. And there's going to be an entire society of people with ADHD that are going to be these problem solvers for lots of things that can happen in the future. So why hasn't it been solved? Medication can help or worsen the problem, and nobody knows really what it is, and it's a game of Russian roulette. Now, I say this because I've talked to medical doctors, I've talked to psychologists, I've talked to the psychiatrists and pediatricians, and not a single one has said anything different than, Dr. Etka, I do not know which drug is going to help which client, which patient, which little kid, which little girl. They don't know. Another problem is all the pills come in certain levels, a 10, an 18 milligram, a 36 milligram, a 54, and there's nothing in between. Well, what happens when this dosage doesn't work enough, but then you take the next one and all of a sudden everything's bad, horrible, things, wheels fall off the truck. Well, what are you going to do? You can't cut it in half. You can't do those things. So the doctors don't know which drug is going to work for which child. That's pretty scary. And of course, you've all been around the internet, you've been on Facebook, you've been all over Google, looking for answers. And all the chat boards that come up with people that are just saying whatever they want to say, that hasn't been researched, that hasn't been, no credentials with it, no peer-reviewed journals, anything like that, or anatomy or physiology. I'm going to give that to you tonight. I'm not going to give you my opinion. I'll share some of my experiences with it, but the best way I can help you is to say, look, here's concrete evidence. Here's something that's extremely important that you need to look at differently if you're thinking it's a disorder, a problem, or something that only drugs can solve. Because clearly we're doing it really well, a whole different way.